Have you ever wondered why some people seem to just effortlessly navigate complex social situations? They always seem to come out on top, while others, well, they stumble, even with the best intentions. It almost feels like there are these hidden mechanisms, these unseen forces governing influence and success.
That's a question that's really captivated people for, well, centuries. Leaders, strategists, thinkers. This idea that there are underlying rules to how we interact, a kind of social physics, maybe,
hmm
and that figuring them out gives you a shortcut to influence. It's incredibly compelling.
Absolutely. And that's exactly the journey we're setting off on today here on the Deep Dive. Welcome. Our mission, as always, is to take your sources, the research, our notes, all of it, and really extract the most potent nuggets of knowledge. We want to help you become truly well-informed without feeling, buried in information. Today, we are plunging headfirst into a really fascinating, sometimes frankly unsettling, but undeniably insightful work, The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene.
Yeah, and this isn't just some theoretical armchair stuff. Greene meticulously distilled centuries of human interaction, strategy, power dynamics, drawing from an incredible range of historical figures. We're talking everyone from cunning statesman Otto von Bismarck comes to mind, to manipulative courtiers, legendary seducers like Casanova, even notorious con artists like Yellow Kid Weil. It's quite the lineup.
It really is. It's like a comprehensive, almost anthropological look at how power's been gained, used, and, well, often lost throughout history.
Exactly.
So our deep dive today, our aim is to unpack some of the most compelling of these laws. We're going to dissect their core judgments, explore the often counterintuitive interpretations, and try to reveal the timeless keys to power they offer. We'll get into the specific examples Greene uses, often pretty dramatic ones, to show how these laws actually play out in the real world. The goal is to help you, our listener, grasp this intricate art of power and influence.
Prepare for a journey, I'd say. Through cunning, strategy, and maybe the deeper, darker currents of human nature, we'll discover how appearances can be incredibly deceiving, how seeming weakness can actually be turned into surprising strength, and why, really, at its heart, understanding human psychology is often the ultimate shortcut to influence.
It's about recognizing patterns, right? Recurring patterns in how people behave and learning to anticipate reactions, often, to your advantage.
Precisely. It's pattern recognition applied to social dynamics.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our first core theme, the art of appearance and perception shaping how others see you. And the very first law Greene lays out right off the bat, it's a classic. Law 1, never outshine the master.
The judgment here is strikingly direct, Greene says. Always make those above you feel comfortably superior. He goes on, in your desire to please and impress them, do not go too far in displaying your talents, or you might accomplish the opposite, inspire fear and insecurity. Make your masters appear more brilliant than they are, and you will attain the heights of power.
Wow, straight to the point.
It really speaks to a fundamental, almost primal insecurity. It's in all of us, maybe, but it gets particularly pronounced, Greene argues, among those in positions of authority.
It taps right into the human ego, doesn't it? That fear that someone beneath you isn't just more capable, but might, erode your standing somehow, maybe accidentally, maybe not.
Absolutely.
And Greene gives us such a vivid, almost brutal illustration. The story of Nicolas Fouquet, finance minister to the young Louis XIV. Fouquet was, by all accounts, immensely wealthy, a man of incredible taste, and he throws this absolutely unprecedented party at his brand new chateau, Vaux-le-Vicomte, to impress the king.
Right, and his intention really was to show loyalty, to show how indispensable he was by showcasing France's potential grandeur through his own resources. Look what I can do for you, king.
But Louis XIV saw it completely differently.
Completely differently. Louis, the Sun King, he was still consolidating his power, famously arrogant, needed to be the absolute center of attention, always. So instead of being flattered by Fouquet's amazing display, he felt, well, deeply offended. Fouquet's party was just too magnificent, more so than anything Louis himself had hosted.
He felt upstaged.
Exactly. It seemed like his own friends, his subjects, were more charmed by Fouquet than by him. Louis saw it as this audacious flaunting of wealth and power that implicitly, unacceptably, outshone his own majesty.
And the consequence was swift.
And brutal.
Utterly brutal. The very next day, wasn't it? Or very soon after. Fouquet's arrested by D'Artagnan himself, the king's head musketeer.
No way.
Yes, and he's later tried for embezzlement, though, ironically, a lot of what he did was apparently on the king's behalf, or with his... Okay. Found guilty. Sentenced to 20 years. solitary confinement, in the most isolated, godforsaken fortress in France. A truly catastrophic fall from grace, all from one party.
Incredible. And you contrast that with his successor, Jean-Baptiste Colbert. Colbert, yes. The polar opposite. Colbert was known for being, well, tight-fisted, almost famously boring parties in Paris.
Yeah.
He made absolutely sure every penny from the treasury went straight into Louis XIV's hands, which, by the way, enabled the building of Versailles, a palace designed to completely dwarf Fouquet's chateau.
He learned the lesson.
He absolutely learned the lesson. Colbert understood his role was to make the king shine, not himself. He funneled all glory, all resources directly to Louis, positioning himself as the diligent, humble servant, not a rival in splendor.
So the key takeaway here, for power, Greene says, is recognizing that insecurity is universal, especially at the top. It's a huge misstep to think that just showing off your talents will win you affection or make you secure. Your boss might say they appreciate it, but
underneath, they might be quietly looking for someone less threatening, someone who makes them feel smarter, more brilliant. The strategy then becomes discreet flattery. It's a subtle art. If you're smarter, act a bit less smart, or at least don't rub it in.
like act naive sometimes.
Exactly. Act naive. Ask for their expertise. Greene even suggests making harmless mistakes so they can step in and help or correct you. Masters apparently love that. It validates their wisdom.
Right, it makes them feel useful, powerful.
And it helps you avoid sparking that resentment, that ill will from superiors. It ensures your climb doesn't create silent enemies along the way.
So for you, listening, it raises a real question, doesn't it? In your job, especially in teams or reporting to a manager, how do you show you're competent, that you add value, without accidentally making your boss feel insecure or, diminished?
It's a very delicate balance, a constant negotiation, really.
That idea of managing perception is fascinating, but it's only part of it. Sometimes it's not just what you show, but what you deliberately don't show. Which brings us right to Law 3. Conceal your intentions.
This one implies that our first instinct is usually to trust appearances. So if you can cloak your, let's say, less savory or more ambitious qualities and cultivate an air of honesty, you can effectively disguise what you're really after.
It's about using a screen of smoke, right? A diversion.
Precisely. Greene emphasizes that deception is always the best strategy, but the best deceptions require a screen of smoke to distract people's attention from your real purpose.
No.
And often, that screen isn't some elaborate production. It's a bland, inconspicuous exterior, the perfect camouflage. If you lead someone down a path that feels familiar and comfortable, they won't notice when you subtly steer them into a trap.
It's not about outright lying, necessarily. More like misdirection, controlling the story.
Exactly. Controlling the narrative around your actions.
Yeah.
Misdirection is key.
Okay, let's look at some examples. These are fascinating. Otto von Bismarck, the guy who unified Germany. He was a huge supporter of Prussian might, believed in war to get things done.
Passionately so.
But in 1850, the Prussian military wasn't ready. The king, his ministers, they genuinely wanted peace. So Bismarck gets up in parliament and gives this speech advocating for peace, even praising Austria, their rival.
Astonishing, right? Everyone thought he'd completely changed his tune, that he was suddenly anti-war.
But it was a total act.
A deliberate, masterful ruse. Bismarck knew that by championing the very cause he secretly despised, he'd throw everyone off the scent of his real long-term plans. The king, relieved by this seemingly peace-loving stance, makes him a cabinet minister. And from that position, Bismarck meticulously climbs the ranks, becomes prime minister.
And
then he systematically orchestrates the very wars against Austria and France he'd publicly spoken out against, leading ultimately to German unification under Prussia. His true intentions were buried deep beneath that facade of peace and loyalty.
that is some next-level strategy. Then there's the classic, almost chilling example of Iago and Othello from Shakespeare.
Ah, yes. Iago's power comes entirely from his apparent sincerity. He convinces Othello, this powerful general, that he's acting out of deep concern for Othello's honor, that it pains him to share his worries about Desdemona's fidelity.
It's all fake, but Othello buys it completely.
Completely. That false sincerity disarms Othello, makes him trust Iago implicitly. And that trust leads directly to tragedy Othello, murdering his innocent wife.
Yeah.
It's a stark illustration of how potent fake sincerity can be.
And Yellow Kid Weil, the con artist, he mastered this too, but in a different way.
Right. Weil wouldn't just tell lies. He would seem to believe so deeply in the phony stock or the rigged horse race he was selling that it became almost impossible for his victims, his suckers, to doubt it. It wasn't necessarily the complexity of the scam itself, but his utterly convincing, sort of bland, unremarkable front, he called no attention to himself. His seeming conviction did the work.
He'd be honest about small things too, right? As a decoy.
Exactly. Build trust on minor points to enable major deception. Honesty is just another tool.
Okay, one more story here. Emperor Selassie of Ethiopia and his rival, the warlord Balcha. Balcha was powerful, suspicious, always expecting a trap.
Very wary. So Selassie throws this banquet. He's charming, deferential, praises Balcha lavishly. He even lets Balcha's personal bodyguards stay armed, highly unusual, a seemingly generous gesture.
Creating a smokescreen.
A thick smokescreen of trust and camaraderie. Balcha felt totally in control, completely distracted, savoring his apparent upper hand.
But while the banquet was happening,
While Balcha was enjoying himself, miles away, Selassie's army was simultaneously disarming Balcha's soldiers, taking control of his key strongholds. By the time Balcha realized he'd been completely outplayed, it was far too late. Checkmate.
wow. Selassie, who seems so gentle and peace-loving.
Used meticulous misdirection. Played on Balcha's expectations perfectly. The key insight here isn't just secrecy that can make people suspicious. It's actively talking about false desires, false goals, appearing friendly, open, totally harmless.
That false sincerity again.
It's incredibly powerful. People naturally mistake it for the real thing. The best deceivers cultivate an air of honesty in one area to hide their dishonesty in another. It's like the sheepskin Greene talks about the fox hiding inside.
A bland front is often best because it disarms suspicion. Though sometimes, like those old charlatan mountebanks, a big, colorful distraction works too, making the entertainment the smokescreen for selling snake oil.
Right, that's the rare exception.
So for you, the listener, what does this imply for, say, your public statements or negotiations? What do you reveal, or maybe more importantly, what do you strategically not reveal?
It leads perfectly into the next law, actually. Law 4, always say less than necessary. The judgment is pretty clear. When you say less, you appear greater and more powerful. Silence makes others uncomfortable. It forces them to interpret, to fill the void, and crucially, it stops them from figuring out your real intentions or spotting weaknesses.
Louis XIV again, he seems to be a master of these laws.
He really is a prime example for many of them. His ministers, his courtiers, they'd give these elaborate presentations, laying out options, asking his opinion, waiting anxiously for his nod. And Louis would just listen in profound silence, with this completely enigmatic look, maybe a slight nod, and finally he'd say, "I shall see."
That's it.
That's it. Then he'd walk away. They wouldn't hear another direct word. Weeks later, the decree would be issued, or he'd just act decisively. They just saw the result.
That must have been terrifying for them.
Utterly terrifying. Kept them completely under his thumb. As one contemporary, Saint-Simon, noted, no one knew as well as he how to sell his words, his smile, even his glances. His majesty was enhanced by the sparseness of his words.
His silence created this aura of power.
Exactly. Because humans are, as Greene puts it, machines of interpretation and explanation. When you control what you reveal, you stay unreadable. You prevent others from piercing your intentions or finding your vulnerabilities. It's not just what you say, but the power you gain by not saying it.
We even see this in the art world, maybe unintentionally sometimes, with figures like Andy Warhol or Marcel Duchamp.
Right. They rarely talked about their work, they let the art speak, or just said very little when asked.
And that made everyone else talk more.
Precisely. Critics, the public, they interpreted, discussed endlessly, which in turn increased the perceived meaning, the value, the mystique. The less the artist said, the deeper the work seemed.
The flip side, saying too much, can be disastrous. Greene gives the example of Kondraty Ryleyev.
Oh, that's a grim one. A leader in the Decembrist uprising in Russia, 1825. Sentenced to hang.
Yeah.
But during the execution, the rope breaks.
Which was usually seen as, like, divine intervention, right? A sign for a pardon?
Usually, yes. But Ryleyev, bruised but thinking he's saved, stands up and shouts something like, "You see, in Russia, they don't even know how to make rope properly."
Oh, no.
Big mistake. That foolish, badly timed remark completely sealed his fate, turned a potential reprieve into a definite death sentence. They probably rehanged him. A brutal lesson in keeping your mouth shut.
So power really is a game of appearances, and silence is an active, powerful tool. It creates that aura of depth, but also just reduces the risk of saying something stupid or dangerous.
Absolutely. Reduces your attack surface, you could say.
So for you, the listener, how can you use this strategically? In conversations, negotiations, maybe even presentations? How can that air of profundity or control be cultivated just by consciously choosing to say less?
It's a powerful technique to consider, which leads us to another foundational piece. Law 5. So much depends on reputation guarded with your life. This law states, essentially, that reputation is the cornerstone of power, an unassailable reputation. It can intimidate enemies, win allies before you even open your mouth, but once it slips, you're instantly vulnerable. Attacks follow from everywhere.
P.T. Barnum, the showman, provides a great example of reputation's impact, especially early on. In 1841, he's trying to buy the American Museum. No money, but loads of guarantees, references, promises.
Or he's trying to talk his way into the deal?
The owners verbally agree. But last minute, the deal goes to a rival, Peale's museum. Why? Because Peale's already had a solid reputation. They were known. Barnum at that point had basically none.
His lack of reputation directly cost him the deal. Shows its tangible value right there.
Definitely. And then there's that ancient story of Mitsuya, a favorite of a Chinese ruler. It shows how fragile reputation is.
Yes, that one's fascinating. Actions that totally charmed the ruler when Mitsuya was the favorite, like riding in the ruler's coach without permission because his mother was sick, or sharing a half-eaten peach because it tasted good.
Things that showed intimacy, maybe?
Exactly. But later, after jealous courtiers subtly damaged his reputation, those exact same actions were reinterpreted negatively. Suddenly they were seen as disloyal, disrespectful, and he was punished for them.
Wow. So reputation completely frames how actions are perceived.
Profoundly. And it shows how quickly that positive perception can sour, turning an asset into a huge liability.
It's true. Your reputation walks into the room before you do. Greene mentions Henry Kissinger,
whose reputation as the ultimate negotiator often paved the way for diplomacy. Nobody wanted to seem so unreasonable that even Kissinger couldn't sway them.
Casanova,
whose reputation as a legendary seducer fueled women's curiosity. They wanted to experience his powers for themselves, apparently. His reputation did half the work.
It becomes a kind of calling card.
A very powerful one. The key insight is that your reputation should do a lot of the work for you. Ideally, make it simple, based on one outstanding quality, efficiency, charm, even honesty, which can paradoxically cover for deception.
So the question for you, the listener, is what steps can you take to really cultivate and guard your professional and personal reputation? How do you make sure it's your strongest asset, not a hidden weakness?
It requires constant vigilance.
Okay, final law in this theme of appearance. Law 6. Court attention at all cost. The judgment here is pretty unapologetic. Everything is judged by its appearance. What is unseen counts for nothing. Stand out. Be conspicuous at all cost. Make yourself a magnet of attention by appearing larger, more colorful, more mysterious than the bland and timid masses.
It's about becoming a literal magnet. Even if the attention is controversial or negative at first, Greene explicitly says, notoriety of any sort will bring you power. Better to be slandered and attacked than ignored. Invisibility in the power game is fatal.
P.T. Barnum again. He really lived this, didn't he?
Yeah.
Early on, 1836, performing in Annapolis, this bizarre thing happens. The crowd mistakes him for this really controversial figure, Reverend Avery, who'd just been acquitted of murder, but everyone still thought he did it.
Right, a case of mistaken identity, but potentially deadly.
A furious mob forms, ready to lynch him. Barnum, thinking fast, somehow convinces them to follow him to a service tent to check his identity. He turns this near disaster into a huge public spectacle, drawing a massive crowd.
He instinctively got it. Even negative attention, if you can somehow manage it, is better than being ignored. It puts you on the map.
We see this in invention, too. Thomas Edison versus Nikola Tesla.
A classic comparison. Edison was a master promoter, always courting attention, public demonstrations, talking up fantastic future inventions he might never build.
Made him way more famous than Tesla.
Absolutely. Even though Tesla was arguably more brilliant scientifically, he was less known, less adept at self-promotion. Edison even refused to share a Nobel Prize with him, valuing his own singular fame more. Being seen was paramount for Edison.
Then there's Pietro Aretino, that young servant boy in Rome who wanted to be a writer.
Desperately wanted attention.
Yeah.
So what does he do? Publishes these scandalous satirical poems mocking the Pope. Leo attacks even the Pope's pet elephant.
Outrageous.
Totally outrageous. But it worked. It instantly put him in the public eye, launched his career. Sometimes breaking the rules is the fastest way to get noticed.
And Mata Hari, the dancer and alleged spy.
She cultivated mystique by constantly changing her story. One day she's Dutch, the next from Java, then India, claiming she learned sacred Hindu dances, could do logarithms.
No one knew what was true.
Exactly. But her shifting, exotic tales kept her name on everyone's lips in Paris, even though few had actually seen her dance. Her unreadability, her mystery, drew people in, made her seem powerful, intriguing.
Even leaders like Mao Zedong and Hannibal used this.
Mao cultivated an enigmatic, contradictory image. kept people guessing, made him seem larger than life, commanded attention. Hannibal's daring, inexplicable moves, like crossing the Alps with elephants, created this intimidating, almost supernatural presence. His enemies couldn't figure him out.
So the keys here are about cultivating a unique style, a quirk, a compelling image, something that sets you apart.
And the power of mystery. It draws people in, makes you seem powerful. Acting inconsistently can even keep others off balance, forced to pay attention to you.
So for you, the listener, how might you strategically cultivate attention or maybe a bit of intriguing mystery in your career, your public persona, without, overdoing it and just seeming like an attention seeker?
It's finding that strategic sweet spot, that unique edge.
Okay, let's shift gears. Our second core theme, strategic engagement and manipulation navigating the social battlefield. We kicked this off with a really provocative one, almost counterintuitive. Law 2. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies.
This judgment is pretty stark. Be wary of friends. They will betray you more quickly, for they are easily aroused to envy. They also become spoiled and tyrannical. Ouch. But hire a former enemy, and he will be more loyal than a friend because he has more to prove. In fact, you have more to fear from friends than from enemies. If you have no enemies, find the way to make them.
Wow, that's a cynical take on friendship.
It's certainly a cynical, but maybe historically informed view of loyalty and power dynamics. Greene suggests favors given to friends can breed resentment, feel like an obligation, while former enemies, needing to prove their new loyalty, might actually be more reliable.
Michael III, the Byzantine emperor, learned this the hard way.
Tragically so. Young ruler, inexperienced, surrounded by plots, needed a totally loyal advisor. Who does he pick? His best friend, Basilius.
Someone with no government experience, right? Just a friend he trusted.
Exactly. Elevated him from head of the royal stables, showered him with wealth, immense trust, an act of profound kindness.
Which turned out to be
Fatal. Greene explains the psychology. People want to feel they earned their good fortune. Getting favors just based on friendship, not merit, can feel oppressive. It breeds hidden resentment, envy. Basilius may be feeling that pressure, feeling indebted, eventually conspired and murdered Michael, his benefactor, his friend. The friend betrayed him faster and more brutally than an enemy might have.
That is grim. What about Emperor Sung of China? He handled his friends differently.
Very differently. Smart strategist, knew most emperors before him got murdered by their own powerful military commanders, their supposed friends. So at this lavish banquet, lots of wine, guards dismissed, he doesn't threaten his generals. He gives them this cunning illusion of choice.
How so?
He talks about his fear that their subordinates might force them to rebel, an implicit threat. Then he offers this seemingly kind alternative. Retire peacefully with riches and honor, just give up your commands.
Clever. He's basically saying retire rich, or else.
Pretty much. And the generals, drunk, probably scared, readily agreed. They gave up their power for wealth. Sung understood friendship alone is flimsy in the power game. He manipulated the situation to neutralize the threat.
It's fascinating how Mao Zedong used enemies against other enemies.
A brilliant application of the principle. 1937, Japan invades China, interrupting the civil war between Mao's communists and Chiang Kai-shek's nationalists.
Some communists wanted to just sit back, let the nationalists fight Japan alone.
Right, let them take the hit. But Mao disagreed. Profoundly. He argued the Japanese invasion, while terrible for China, was perfect training for his own, less experienced communist army.
Fighting a tough enemy would make them stronger.
Exactly. Gain combat experience, discipline, resolve, and it worked. By the time Japan retreated, the communists were battle-hardened, ready to defeat the nationalists who had borne the brunt of the fighting. Mao used Japan as a tool to weaken Chiang Kai-shek.
He didn't avoid the enemy, he leveraged them.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So, the psychological reason friends betray, Greene says, often boils down to hidden resentment, envy, feeling they didn't earn their position, feeling indebted. And provocatively, he states, without enemies around us, we grow lazy. An enemy keeps you sharp, focused, alert, prevents complacency.
So maybe it's better to use enemies as enemies, exploit their predictable hostility rather than turn them into unreliable friends.
That's the provocative idea. It suggests a need for careful boundaries with friends in professional or competitive settings. Where does loyalty really lie? What resentments might be bubbling under the surface?
It calls for a pragmatic view of relationships when power's involved.
Definitely less sentimental, more strategic.
Okay, let's move to Law 11. Learn to keep people dependent on you. The judgment here is clear. To maintain your independence, you must always be needed and wanted. The more you are relied on, the more freedom you have. Never teach them enough so that they can do without you.
This really underscores that lasting power often isn't about brute force, but cultivating this subtle yet profound dependence. The ultimate power, Greene suggests, is getting people to do what you want willingly. Not because you force them, but because they need you. Their success is tied to yours.
It fosters loyalty born of necessity.
Precisely.
The story of the mercenary in the town of Siena is chilling, though, and shows the danger of not being needed anymore.
Oh, yes. This mercenary saves Siena from attack, performs amazing feats of bravery. The grateful citizens debate how to reward him. No reward seems enough. Then one citizen suggests, with terrifying practicality, let us kill him and then worship him as our patron saint.
And they did it.
And they did it. Once his immediate usefulness was over, once he was no longer indispensable for their survival, his power vanished. He became a saint, but a dead one. His indispensability ceased, and so did his life.
A stark warning. But contrast that with Louis XI, the paranoid French king, and his astrologer.
A brilliant counterexample. Louis, deeply superstitious, decides to test his astrologer by threatening to toss him out a window. Just before giving the signal, he asks the astrologer to predict his own fate.
What did the astrologer say?
With incredible quick thinking, knowing the king's fears, he replies, I shall die just 3 days before your majesty.
Genius.
Absolute genius. The signal was never given. Louis spared him, protected him, showered him with gifts, became utterly dependent on the astrologer's survival, believing his own life depended on it. The astrologer, of course, outlived the king, mastered power through manufactured dependence.
And Michelangelo with Pope Julius II, that shows dependence based on unique talent.
Yes, they famously argued over the Pope's massive tomb project. Michelangelo, frustrated, just leaves Rome. Everyone expects the Pope, known for his temper, to fire him. But Julius II, realizing he could find other painters but never another Michelangelo for his tomb, actively sought him out, begged him to return. Michelangelo's unique, irreplaceable talent made him indispensable, giving him huge leverage even over the Pope.
We even see this in modern times. Harry Cohn, the studio head, protecting a screenwriter accused of communism during the blacklist.
John Howard Lawson. Cohn protected him, despite the huge political risk, simply because Lawson was one of the best in the business. Indispensable talent. Cohn, the powerful studio boss, was ultimately dependent on Lawson's creativity.
So the goal is to enmesh yourself in others' work, their lives, so removing you causes massive problems.
Exactly. So much difficulty, so much time lost training or replacement, maybe even failure. It's that man behind the throne idea, the master needs you so much, they effectively become your slave in that dynamic.
So for you, listening, what unique skills, knowledge, or networks can you cultivate to make yourself truly indispensable, making your loss seem unthinkable?
It's about finding and honing that unique value proposition.
Okay, now for one of the most stark, maybe unsettling laws, Law 15, crush your enemy totally.
Yeah, this one pulls no punches. All great leaders since Moses have known that a feared enemy must be crushed completely. More is lost through stopping halfway than through total annihilation. The enemy will recover and will seek revenge, crush him, not only in body but in spirit.
It's a chilling warning against half measures, leaving any spark alive. Cesare Borgia is a prime example here, with his magnificent deceit at Senigallia.
Infamous. He lured his rebellious generals who'd betrayed him before to this meeting, pretended it was for reconciliation, friendship.
But it was a trap.
A total trap. Once they were inside the city walls, disarmed, feeling safe, he had them all arrested and summarily executed. No survivors, no lingering threat. One swift, total brutal blow to consolidate his power. No embers left for a future fire.
Contrast that with Liu Pang versus Shang in ancient China.
A classic case of not crushing the enemy. Shang repeatedly showed what he thought was mercy or chivalry to Liu Pang. Let him escape, regroup, even after catching him in bad spots.
And Liu Pang kept coming back stronger.
Every single time. Learned from his mistakes, got new allies, refined his strategy. Eventually, Liu Pang used a fake treaty to trick Shang into relaxing, then launched a surprise attack, slaughtered Shang's army, forced his suicide. Shang's failure to be ruthless led directly to his own ruin.
Empress Wu of China, too. Ruthless consolidation.
Arguably the only female emperor. Feared rivals, even her own sons. Systematically eliminated them, poisoned, forced suicide, exiled to ensure her absolute, unquestioned rule. Understood, leaving any potential threat was too risky for maintaining total control.
So the lesson is sympathy for enemies is dangerous. It just gives them time to plot revenge.
That's Greene's argument. It strengthens their hatred. Power, he insists, must be exterminated, crushed, and denied the chance to return. Especially with former friends turned enemies, reconciliation is out of the question. Only one side can win, and it must win totally.
This one really raises some uncomfortable questions, doesn't it? In what contexts, if any, is this morally justifiable? Maybe pure survival? Or is it just ruthless pragmatism?
It definitely sources a confrontation with the harsher realities of power dynamics. Where do ethics fit when survival is seemingly on the line?
Let's move to a related but different strategic idea. Law 26. Keep your hands clean.
This is about appearances again, but in a specific way. You must seem like a paragon of civility, efficiency, good character. To hide your involvement in, well, messier actions, you skillfully use others. Cat's paws, scapegoats, they take the blame, you stay spotless.
Maintain that perfect public image while maybe orchestrating things behind the scenes.
Exactly. As the philosopher Grecian advised, do everything pleasant yourself, everything unpleasant through third parties. Win favor with the good stuff, deflect blame for the bad. Keeps negative fallout away from your reputation.
Cao Cao, the Chinese warlord, used a scapegoat brilliantly, facing mutiny over a grain shortage.
Instead of taking responsibility, he publicly executed his quartermaster, loyal but expendable, on fake charges of embezzlement. Instantly deflected blame, reasserted control, his hands, perfectly clean, authority preserved, at the cost of someone else's life.
Cardinal Richelieu in France did something similar, didn't he? With the Queen Mother plotting against him.
Yes. Couldn't implicate the Queen Mother directly, too messy politically. So he framed and executed the innocent brother of one of her co-conspirators, Marillac. A brutal warning to others, sent a terrifying message, but Richelieu himself faced no direct political fallout. Hands clean.
Cleopatra used her servants and soldiers to murder her siblings, right? Kept her public image intact while eliminating rivals.
A master of delegation for unpleasant tasks. She understood the power of plausible deniability.
And Mao used Chiang Kai-shek as a massive cat's paw against the Japanese.
A truly brilliant, large-scale example. Let the nationalists do the bulk of the brutal fighting against Japan, knowing it would decimate their forces. Mao effectively used his main internal enemy to weaken both enemies, Japan and the nationalists, paving the way for his own victory later. Let his enemy do the dirty, costly work.
Even Yellow Kid Weil used cat's paws in his cons.
Absolutely. He'd get someone the rich target already trusted an associate, a friend interested in the fake scheme first. That convinced Cat's Paw would then, enthusiastically, bring in the main target. Instant credibility for Weil, zero direct suspicion on him initially.
So a scapegoat shifts blame, serves as a warning, maybe gets rid of someone inconvenient. A cat's paw saves you effort, risk, keeps your hands clean.
Exactly. The scapegoat takes the fall after the fact. The cat's paw does the dirty work beforehand or during.
This makes you wonder, doesn't it, for you listening? When might you unknowingly be used as a cat's paw, doing someone else's unpleasant task? How do you spot that to avoid being just a pawn?
It requires a keen eye for underlying motives and agendas. Who really benefits from your actions?
Let's turn to another critical strategic element. Law 35, master the art of timing, the judgment. Never appear in a hurry. Patience teaches you to seize the opportune moment. Master the 3 types of time: long, force, and end.
Timing is just crucial. It separates the masters from the amateurs. Greene emphasizes that if your mind isn't cluttered by constant rushing, you can see further ahead. You can resist tempting baits, stay flexible, let opportunities arise. Slow and steady, deliberately timed success is the kind that lasts.
Joseph Fouché, the political survivor during the French Revolution and Napoleon's era, seems like a master of long time.
Absolutely. After the Reign of Terror, he just waited patiently on the sidelines, let bitter feelings against him fade. Then, subtly re-entered politics, showed his indispensability, became Napoleon's powerful police minister, played the long game.
And when Napoleon staged his coup,
Fouché famously pretended to be asleep all day. A brilliant act of non-opposition, strategic waiting. Secured his position without taking sides too early, didn't force it, waited for the right moment.
There's that story about the Ming painter Chow Yun, too. If you do not walk too fast.
Right. He's told he'll reach a town before the gates close, but only if he doesn't hurry. He rushes, gets exhausted, has accidents, misses the deadline. A subtle reminder that controlling the pace, resisting the urge to rush, is itself a form of control. Lets events unfold advantageously.
But timing isn't always about being slow. There's forced time.
Yes, strategically manipulating deadlines and pressure. Caesar Borgia would suddenly push hard for a decision in negotiations.
Yeah.
Immense pressure. Forced opponents into hasty mistakes, revealed weaknesses, got them to agree to his terms because they didn't have time to think, control the clock, control the outcome.
And Sertorius, the Roman general, used timing on his own troops.
Cleverly. Let his overconfident barbarian troops attack prematurely. Knew they'd get a minor defeat, but it would humble them, make them more obedient to his disciplined training. A calculated use of timing to achieve a desired long-term result. Better soldiers. And finally, there's end time. The moment when, after all the waiting and maneuvering, it's time for speed and decisive force to clinch victory.
These concepts, long time, forced time, end time, seem really useful. For you, the listener, how can you apply these ideas? Are you rushing when patience is needed, or being too patient when quick action could seize an opportunity?
It's about developing that feel for the rhythm of events, the right moment to act or wait.
Okay, let's move to our third and final theme. The danger of certain paths, pitfalls to avoid. We start with Law 10, infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky.
This was pretty blunt, too. Misfortune is contagious. Associate with positive, fortunate people to avoid being dragged down. There's nothing to be gained by associating with the infected.
It warns about the viral nature of negativity, chronic unhappiness, bad luck. King Ludwig I of Bavaria and Lola Montez.
A prime example. Ludwig, cultured but impressionable, becomes completely smitten, bewitched by Lola Montez, a dancer known for being destructive, offensive, scandalous. His advisors warned him constantly.
But she ignored them.
Totally ignored them. Appeared publicly with her, showered her with gifts, even made her a Bavarian citizen. Her behavior whipping an old man, her dog attacking people, infuriated everyone. Ruined Ludwig's reputation, his finances. He fired anyone who criticized her, isolating himself.
Her negativity dragged him down.
Completely. Her misfortune, her destructive nature, became his. It ultimately led to his abdication. Shows the infecting power of the unhappy.
We also see this with Cassius infecting Brutus against Caesar.
Right. Cassius was consumed by envy, discontent about Caesar's power. He constantly whispered in Brutus's ear, Brutus being noble but maybe naive, painting Caesar as evil, tyrannical. Slowly but surely, Cassius infected Brutus with his own bitterness, drawing him into the conspiracy that led to Caesar's death and their own tragic ends. Cassius's negativity poisoned Brutus.
But there's a positive side, too. Emotional osmosis.
Greene suggests so. Napoleon's seeking out the cultured Talleyrand to soak up the culture he lacked. Napoleon's rough edges were smoothed by associating with his polished minister. The idea is, if you're naturally miserly, hang out with generous people. If gloomy, gravitate towards the cheerful. Strategically create associations with positive traits. Avoid those who reinforce your own flaws.
So the chronically unhappy often seem like victims, right? Making their misery seem external before it subtly infects you.
Exactly. And the risk is wasted time, energy, and just guilt by association. Your reputation suffers too.
So for you, the listener, how do you spot these infectors in your life? Professional, social? And how do you protect your own peace, focus, and goals from their negative influence?
It requires discernment and sometimes setting firm boundaries.
Okay, next pitfall. Law 18. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous.
Counterintuitive, this one. The world is dangerous. Everyone has to protect themselves. A fortress, however, is no protection. It cuts you off from help, flexibility, perspective, making you an easy target. Better to circulate among people, find allies, mingle. You are shielded by the crowd.
It feels wrong, doesn't it? Instinct says withdraw when threatened. But Louis XIV's Versailles, it looked like a fortress, but wasn't used like one strategically.
Exactly. Architecturally grand, yes.
Yeah.
But strategically, it was a social hub. Louis deliberately kept his powerful, potentially rebellious nobles close. Living there under his constant watch, in his orbit, he was at the center of things, aware of plots, whispers. He didn't isolate himself from danger. He brought the potential danger to him, where he could manage it. Active engagement, not withdrawal.
Machiavelli argued against fortresses too, didn't he?
Famously. So they're often military mistakes. Symbols of isolation, easy targets for siege, cut you off from help, intelligence. They become prisons, vulnerable to disease, low supplies, loss of perspective. Power needs social interaction, circulation. You need to be central.
The painter Pontormo is a tragic example of isolation.
Oh, definitely. Worked on frescoes in a chapel for 11 years. Almost total isolation. Feared human contact, theft of ideas, judgment. Built a screen around his work, rarely left.
And the works suffer.
Massively. It was chaotic, disproportionate, deemed unsalvageable. A total failure. His isolation didn't protect his genius, it stifled it. led to his ruin.
So this law warns that retreat leads to smaller circles, lost perspective, paranoia, less ability to maneuver.
Precisely. Isolation often precedes defeat in the power game, Greene warns.
So for you, listener, when challenges arise, professional or personal, is your instinct to withdraw, build walls, or should you maybe engage more deeply, stay central, even with the risks?
A critical strategic choice. Engagement versus isolation.
Finally, our last pitfall. Law 41, avoid stepping into a great man's shoes.
This is all about forging your own path, your own identity, not just inheriting one. You have to consciously overcome the shadow of a powerful predecessor to create lasting power yourself.
The past can be a burden.
A huge burden, Greene argues. It prevents the young hero from creating their own world, weighs them down with expectations, traditions, comparisons they can rarely win. You have to define yourself to truly lead.
Louis XV, following Louis XIV, seems like a prime example of failing this.
A stark example. Inherited this incredibly strong foundation from the Sun King. But Louis V just trying to continue that grand style, that absolute authority, without having Louis XIV's unique abilities, his charisma, his drive. It created a power vacuum. He couldn't fill his great-grandfather's immense shoes. His reign saw royal authority decline, setting the stage for the revolution.
Alexander the Great, though, did the opposite with his father, Philip II.
Consciously defied and surpassed him. Philip was about cunning, diplomacy, strategy. Alexander chose brutal efficiency, speed, direct conquest, cutting the Gordian knot rather than untying it. A hugely symbolic act of forging his own path, rejecting old ways. He didn't just conquer Persia, which Philip hadn't managed. He pushed further, deliberately aiming to surpass his father's glory, refused to live in his shadow.
Pablo Picasso did this artistically, right? Constantly changing styles.
Embodied it. Relentlessly changed his style, broke with past successes, refused to rest on laurels, become predictable, avoided becoming a caricature of ourselves, as he said, always creating new worlds, not just repeating old ones.
So the key is, psychologically, you have to start from scratch. Throw off the weight of the past.
That's the idea. Power depends on filling a void you've cleared of dead weight, old traditions, the predecessor's looming presence. Greene uses that stark metaphor. The father must be slain at every step of the way.
Psychologically slain, obviously.
Yes, psychologically. Shaz the expectations, the limitations, the style imposed by predecessors, or even your own past successes.
So for you listening, what great man's shoes might you be inadvertently stepping into? Career, family expectations. And how can you courageously forge your own distinct identity and past?
It's about conscious self-creation.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into the 48 laws of power, it feels pretty clear that power, in its rawest, most effective form, is really less about brute force and much more about a deep understanding of human nature.
Absolutely. From mastering perception, shaping how others see you, to navigating that complex social battlefield with cunning and patience and recognizing the dangers, the pitfalls, these laws consistently highlight that influence often comes down to psychological acumen.
We've seen how historical figures, kings, courtiers, con artists meticulously applied these principles, gaining control, maintaining it, often with, startling and sometimes brutal results.
The examples really bring it home, don't they? Louis XIV managing appearances, Mao using enemies. It shows the timeless application of these sometimes uncomfortable dynamics.
And while the contexts are historical, the principles themselves feel timeless. They resonate with human nature across different eras. So whether you're navigating a career, building relationships, or just trying to figure out the dynamics playing out around you, these insights offer a unique lens. Maybe unsettling sometimes, but definitely unique.
It's not necessarily a manual for becoming a tyrant.
Right.
More about becoming well-informed, perceptive, better able to protect yourself, maybe advance your own legitimate goals in a complex, often competitive world. Understanding the game, even if you choose not to play it ruthlessly.
So what does this all really mean for you? Now that you've glimpsed these hidden gears of power, these subtle mechanics, how might you apply a nuanced understanding of these laws?
Maybe to gain knowledge more quickly? To anticipate others' moves with more clarity? To make sure you're steering your own ship, not just being swept along?
What new patterns of power do you see now? In your workplace, your social life, even in public discourse? And armed with this knowledge, what might you choose to do differently to more effectively shape your own future, navigate those currents of influence?
The journey of being truly well-informed. It really is an ongoing, fascinating adventure, isn't it?